Syria's neighbors have been on tenterhooks. One country more than most, Lebanon, with a weak, fractious government, a nation the Syrians occupied for 3 decades. Well, now comes a new twist.
We have more than 20 hostages of Syrian nationality and 1 Turkish. We expect the number of Turkish hostages to increase, God willing.
It's payback on the part of the powerful Shiite Mekdad family after the Free Syrian Army's capture 48 hours earlier of the clan leader's brother, Hassan al-Mekdad. The clan may be Shiite, but the Mekdads insist they don't necessarily answer to Hezbollah, which has so far been silent. Families of a group of other Shiites who've been held in Syria since May, in turn venting their anger by setting up roadblocks on the road to the airport in Beirut on Wednesday. They are frustrated that neither Hezbollah nor the Lebanese government have been able to secure the release of their family members. Either way, the standoff enough to trigger Gulf states to advise their nationals to leave Lebanon. They and the Turks have been the staunchest supporters of the rebel push to oust Assad. Are rivals in Syria trying to draw their neighbors into the conflict? And are they succeeding? Today in the France 24 debate, Lebanon feels the Syria spillover, and with us to talk about it from Beirut, retired General Hisham Jaber, now a business risk consultant and director of the Middle East Center for Studies and Public Relations. Welcome back to the France 24 debate. Welcome here in the studio to Eli Abdelhey, a member of the pro-Western forces of the March 14th movement. Pierre Rousselin, senior editor at French newspaper Le Figaro, which also is the leading French news website. And from Washington, David Schenker of the Washington Institute. Welcome to all of you. You can always catch the France 24 debate on Facebook, and you can weigh in on the conversation as well on Twitter, our handle at FrancoisF24. As we mentioned at the outset, the head of that Shiite clan, Mar al-Mekdad, staging a press conference this Thursday in a southern neighborhood of Beirut, where he promised there'd be no further kidnappings at this point, but he also insisted that he would not back down.
Of course, if Hassan is killed, the first hostage that we will kill will be the Turkish hostage. We hope they let our son go. We hope they are wise and let him go so we can let their children go.
What's your reaction when you see that press conference there, Eli Abdelhey?
First, let me just start by saying that as Lebanese forces and as March 14 coalition, we condemn any kind of kidnapping, and we condemn the kidnapping of the Lebanese people in Syria. But this is not a reason. This is not a reason to allow to any person to kidnap other people in a reaction to this kidnapping. So what's happening now in Lebanon? We understand that these families has pain because they have lost. Maybe they are fearing about they are afraid about their kidnapped relatives. But what they are doing first, it will not liberate. It's not the way to liberate these persons. We don't think about it, and also it is breaking the image of the country, of the Lebanese government, which has the only right and the only authority to liberate its citizens anywhere in the world.
Forgive me for playing devil's advocate, because we've had this conversation before. The alarm bells have gone off before in Lebanon. Is it really different this time? You say you were just back from Beirut yesterday.
You know, tension is growing up in Lebanon. And unfortunately, the government is not taking all the actions, I think, that may contend this tension. And we all know that the Syrian regime is doing its utmost actions to destabilize the Lebanon via the local groups, armed groups. And we think that the more time will be going on, and if the Lebanese government doesn't take quick actions to stop all this, let's say, kidnapping, all this chaos which is created now in Lebanon since several months, the situation will be more and more chaotic, and more dangerous.
Right, and we hope to get a reaction soon from Beirut, having technical issues getting through to Hicham Jaber. Pierre Rousselin, it does show up a weak central government in Lebanon as the neighboring Syria becomes engulfed in an inferno.
Yes, I think what's surprising is that it didn't happen before, and I think, as Eli was saying, it's pretty worrying that it might accelerate, and the destabilization, if it starts really now, can go very quickly in Lebanon. The reason why it didn't start before, I believe, is because Hezbollah is kind of on two sides of the issue, because it's supposed to control more or less the government in Beirut, so it doesn't want to play too much the Syrian card, and stays a little very cautious to what's going on in Syria, although they, of course, help the Syrian government, since they are allied with the Syrian government and with Iran. But up to this point, they've tried to maintain their so-called supposed neutrality in Lebanon in order to maintain their credibility inside Lebanon. If this falls because of what's going on, because of the Shiite community being taken into the conflict of Syria, which is what apparently the Syrian government is trying to do, then things can go from bad to worse very quickly.
All right, we'll take a look in more detail at what's happening inside Hezbollah a little bit later on. I want to ask you, David Schenker, did you see this coming, the scenario that's unfolding, these tit-for-tat hostage takings that we've seen?
Well, it was a little bit surprising, although Hezbollah doesn't control all of the Shiite community of Lebanon. And so, it was a bit of a surprise that we saw this. On the other hand, the clans of the Bekaa have a fiercely independent streak and take matters into their own hands quite often. So I'd say that, it's a little bit of both. That said, from the very beginning, I think we have to understand that it's not only Syria that has been sort of provoking the instability. I mean, we do have, call them useful idiots, call them Syria's allies in Lebanon that have been provoking the instability in Lebanon as well. And by this, I mean, of course, Hezbollah being actively involved in the repression on the ground in Syria, trying to protect their allies. Of course, that would provoke a backlash from the Free Syria Army and the people in Syria who want to get rid of Assad. And of course, people like Michel Samaha, the former Minister of Information of Lebanon, who is a great ally of the Assad regime and of Hezbollah, for that matter, who was caught just a few weeks ago bringing in explosives to try and set off sectarian strife within Lebanon. I think that there are many troublemakers in this formula, and it's not just coming from Assad.
But the fact that Hezbollah has been conspicuously silent, as Pierre Rousselin was saying, does not point to the fact that there is a bit of soul-searching going on, and especially when you see their inability to help free those hostages that have been inside Syria since the month of May.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's a good point. You've seen in several of Hassan Nasrallah's speeches this pleading for the kidnappers to let the Shiite, quote-unquote, pilgrims go. And he has had no success. At one point, he even threatened, if you want war, we shall have war. If you want to be friends, let's be friends. No, this is really, I think, highlights this inability of Hezbollah to do anything about it. And it's sort of an impotence of the vaunted resistance. They are at an all-time low right now. There's little they can do about the kidnapped. It's actually a beautiful symmetry, unfortunate for those who are kidnapped, but an organization that lives and dies based on the practice of kidnapping, not being able to do anything about it when some of their own are kidnapped.
We hope to be able to reach Hicham Jaber shortly. By the way, we mentioned those hostages, those Lebanese Shiite hostages that have been in Syria since the month of May. In Istanbul, a spokesperson for the Free Syrian Army accusing the Assad regime of trying to stoke cross-border tension by deliberately trying to kill those hostages. in the air raid that killed dozens in the north on Wednesday.
Everyone knows that the Lebanese hostages are in Azaz. So the regime today, just a few hours ago, bombarded Azaz just to kill these Lebanese hostages to put an end for this complicated political issue and at the same time to establish and encourage the sectarian war in Lebanon.
Pierre Rousselin, let's take a step back here because it can be a little bit daunting for people who don't know Lebanon very well and don't know Syria very well. A myriad of different factions, of different clans, and then you have all sorts of alliances that shift all the time, conspiracy theories that abound. How do you sort the wheat from the chaff?
Well, of course, all this general what the picture you just gave of Lebanon feeds on and it's one of the explanations that explains how things can very quickly become worse. One incident can feed on another, etc. But I think one has to come back to not basics, but I think unfortunately, what's going on is that the main conflict is between Sunnis and Shias in the Muslim community in Syria and in Lebanon, and this is what's happening, and people are manipulating this conflict, which exists on a deep basis and can become violent very, very easily.
Our reporters who are just back, and I'll put the question in Washington to you, David Schenker, our reporters who are just back from Damascus were telling us on Wednesday how they felt that the sectarian wedge, in a lot of ways, runs deeper in Lebanon than it does in Syria. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think historically that's probably an accurate statement. In Syria, in part because of this ruthless authoritarian rule for all these years, you never saw this type of sectarian issues that we see throughout the Middle East, even though there's a fair amount of minorities and it's a very diverse community in Syria. You didn't see that sort of come out. In Lebanon, we've been seeing it for quite a long time, and it's only until fairly recently, the past couple decades, where they've been able to sort of repress it or suppress these feelings. But they've always been rumbling. So I think that's actually a fairly good estimation of what's going on. That you've had this bubble burst, and in part I think it's being from the outside. Really, it's that Assad saw that in order to make this into a civil war, which I think is in his benefit because it discourages external intervention. Most people think of Lebanon, the civil war, and they don't want to get involved. Assad sought to make this a sectarian issue, and of course his willing partners were Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran with the clerical regime seeking to back its nominally Shiite Alawite partners in Damascus.
Eli Abdelhey, because there is this history of a long civil war in Lebanon, does that keep tempers in check?
Look, in the Taif agreement, everyone said that we will put our weapons off so we can build a state. Still till now, Hezbollah with his weapon, and this is a cause that everyone will go and gather and buy weapons. And what is happening now in Lebanon? I agree with Pierre that the Hezbollah did not interfere or did not react brutally after the kidnapping of the 11 Shia persons in Syria. And we can think that maybe now the Syrian army, the Syrian, let's say, regime, is pushing Hezbollah to interfere, to be more involved in destabilizing the Lebanon by pushing other families like Mekdad and kidnapping their persons. All this
He insists that's not the case.
Yes, but yeah, you can say whatever you want, but the results from the results you can judge what's happening behind the scene. We can see that the Hezbollah.
But is there proof that this has been orchestrated by Hezbollah?
I didn't say orchestrated by Hezbollah. I said it is orchestrated by the Syrian regime, because Hezbollah is not directly reacting as the Syrian regime wants to in Lebanon, and we can imagine after the arrestation of Samaha, Michel Samaha, who is an agent for Syrian army, Syrian regime, we can see that it's one of the elements on which that the regime is trying to destabilize the Lebanon by transporting these explosives, and because it was let's say unveiled, 24 hours later there was this kidnapping, which a lot of rumors are still circulating around this kidnapping. We are not sure who is kidnapping this Hassan Mekdad, and we condemn this kidnapping, as I said, but we cannot say that the Syrian regime is away from this kidnapping. We cannot say this, and we can see that the regime is using these pro-Syrian groups in Lebanon who have kept their weapons because they are hiding behind Hezbollah to destabilize this Lebanon. That's why we are always keep telling that Hezbollah must put his weapons off to change the dawn and the situation in Lebanon.
All right, but once again, that's a claim. We don't have actual concrete evidence of what he's saying.
Yes, but it makes sense that Hezbollah is being in some way destabilized by the Syrian regime that would like Hezbollah to help him in a more direct way. And you have like in Lebanon is typical for that. You have it's like Russian poupées russes, people destabilizing each other at different levels. And what's going to be very interesting is to see if Hezbollah can maintain its control on the Shiite community, which seems to be in question today.
The Hamas movement, which used to be headquartered in Damascus, making what seems like a clean break with the Syrian regime. With Hezbollah, we don't know what's up next.
No, we don't know what's up next, but it's very difficult. If Hezbollah has been allied to Bashar al-Assad, and everybody knows that Bashar al-Assad will not be around. We don't know how long it will take, but in a foreseeable future, Bashar al-Assad will not be around. So Hezbollah is in a very awkward situation where it has to maintain its control of the Shiite community in Lebanon, has to maintain some kind of alliance with what's going on in Syria and its partners in Syria and in Iran. And Iran is also influencing, certainly, the situation in Lebanon. We haven't talked about that
yet, but we will when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.